Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 329 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. Let me first start by congratulating Jalen Hurts for getting a 5-year, $255 million extension, which includes $179 million guaranteed. I think when you talk about like total pay or something, Jalen Hurts would be or is currently the highest paid player in NFL history. When you're talking about like annual salary or something like that. If you really look at it, yes, Carson Wentz had a very, very brief run. And, of course, Nick Foles did what he did in the playoffs. But Jalen Hurts has been the best quarterback that the Eagles have had in recent memory. I think the last one that you can kind of compare him to is Donovan McNabb. So when you have a quarterback that has proven to be one of the best quarterbacks in your franchise currently, and he leads you to a Super Bowl, I can appreciate and I love the fact that the Eagles did what was right. They understood, okay, we just got to the Super Bowl. It doesn't even matter if they get to the Super Bowl again. I think, of course, that's what they're banking on, but they locked up their prized possession. They locked up their best player. And maybe even if you want to argue if he is the best player or not, he is one of the most important players. He is probably the most important player. Now, do I think that he is the best quarterback in the league? Of course not. And I also don't think that value comes from being paid the most. We'll talk about that in a second, but I don't think value, like Kirk Cousins is one of the highest paid players in the league. I don't think he is the best quarterback in the league. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But I can appreciate and I do like the fact that the Eagles did what was right and paid Jalen Hurts what he felt he was worth and what they feel he was worth. Now, one thing that I can appreciate is when an organization does right for a player, they also do right for themselves. And even though you look at $255 million, $179 million guaranteed, and look, that's astronomical. That's crazy. That's a big number. The Eagles still, for lack of a better term, made it a team-friendly deal. And now you're still able to sign players. You're still able to bolster the team because the team did lose a good number of people in free agency. And now you're still able, you still give yourself wiggle room to sign key pieces. I think Jalen Hurts did deserve this contract. Again, when you look at the Eagles and you look at the recent history, Nick Foles had an incredible playoff run, which of course ultimately won the Eagles their first Super Bowl in franchise history. But again, Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, I will say this, and I've come on here several times and I've said where I was wrong at. I was wrong about Jalen Hurts. Again, let me remind you about the Jalen Hurts that we have seen. We saw Jalen Hurts that, of course, went to Alabama, got benched in the national championship for Tua Tagovailoa, goes to Oklahoma. While, yes, he was a Heisman finalist and everything, he didn't, of course, Oklahoma didn't really win anything. They won games, of course, but they didn't win like the national championship or anything like that. You go to the Eagles, one of the worst records in the league when he first gets there. He's considered more of a project than anything else. And then, of course, you remember the play when he made them. Well, he took them to the playoffs, and they went up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' game plan was make Jalen Hurts pass the ball. If we lose because he throws 300, 400 yards, that's okay. It is what it is. It was just their day. And Jalen Hurts struggled mightily. But then, again, one thing that I will say, and I can appreciate this, and I love this actually, is Jalen Hurts has improved year after year after year to now one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Not the best, of course, but one of the best. And a quarterback that deserves this type of money. Now, I hear a lot of people looking at this deal saying the people that believe Jalen Hurts doesn't deserve this money. A lot of the people are saying the biggest reason why the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl was the defense. The defense was historically one of the greatest defenses. If you just look at stats, one of the greatest defenses of all time. And Jalen Hurts didn't have to do that much, especially when you look at the passing yards. His rushing yards were up there, but you look at the passing yards and everything, it's like he didn't have to do much for them to get to the Super Bowl. And I will, I guess, contest that and say, well, again, one of the examples that I love using when describing or talking about quarterbacks is the 49ers. The 49ers for a couple years now, in my opinion, have had the best roster in football. From top to bottom, they have had the best roster in football. And honestly, if just roster mattered, the 49ers would be a multiple time Super Bowl, like reigning Super Bowl champions. The reason why the 49ers have not won a Super Bowl in the last few years, even though I believe they've had the best roster, is because of the quarterback position. Football is one of those sports where it doesn't matter it doesn't matter to a certain extent how good your entire roster is. If you do not have a quarterback, it does not matter. Shouts out to Brock Purdy, shouts out to Trey Lance, shouts out to Jimmy G. They're not getting it done. And I always look at it like this. Let's say Joe Burrow was the quarterback for the 49ers. Do you think that they won a Super Bowl? What if Justin Herbert? What if Patrick Mahomes? What if Aaron Rodgers? What if Tom Brady? What if Super Bowl or quarterbacks that we believe will win a Super Bowl at least once in their career, or quarterbacks that have won Super Bowl, quarterbacks that we believe are top of the game, if they were the quarterback for the 49ers, do you think that they would have won a championship? Let me bring that back to the Eagles. Yes, the Eagles had an incredible defense. Yes, the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football with Lane Johnson, with Jason Kelce. But it doesn't matter if you do not have the quarterback position locked up, and they do with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts proved, at least last year, that he is a top 10 quarterback. A lot of people are arguing he's top 5. And you're paying a top 10, top 5, arguably quarterback what he deserves, $255 million, $179 guaranteed, which is that's pretty much the market now. And speaking of market, let me go to the second part of it. No, actually, congratulations again to Jalen Hurts for getting this contract. Definitely well deserved. But let me go to the second part of this topic. And that is, of course, whenever you hear about a quarterback now getting a deal or getting an extension, the conversation is usually going to revert to Lamar Jackson. Because, of course, as we know, Lamar Jackson is fighting in contract negotiations with the Ravens to get him a contract. And when you look at other people's contracts, you're going to ask, does this help Lamar Jackson? Does this hurt Lamar Jackson as far as his chances on getting what he's asking for? Jalen Hurts' contract is a huge win for not only the Ravens, but the market. And let me tell you why. Let me first explain the market. Oh, damn, my phone. Let me first explain the market. And because I see a lot of people that have been commenting under my videos and everything, commenting under my Lamar Jackson videos, they don't understand market. The market is set usually after the last guy gets paid. The last top guy gets paid. Let me say that. The market is forever changing. The market in 2004 is definitely not the market in 2023. The market in 2012 changes because if you look at the money that quarterbacks and players in general was making in 2012, it is drastically different than what is being made in 2023. So the market is forever changing, and it's usually when the highest number, or the person with the highest number usually sets the market. The thing that people don't understand is just because the market is set doesn't mean that everyone needs to get paid that amount. It just means that's where the market is set. That's the highest amount. Let me first explain why this is a huge win for the market. The market was set, or a lot of people expected the market to be set where Deshaun Watson got his, 230 fully guaranteed or something like that. The Cleveland Browns set a market that nobody wanted to reach. You saw people after like Kyler Murray, like Russell Wilson, both serviceable, really good quarterbacks at the time, get paid under or less than what Deshaun Watson made. That didn't reset the market because the market was still there, and there were still people, i.e. Lamar Jackson, demanding, from what we've been told, demanding Deshaun Watson money. That is still the market. But let me tell you again why this Jalen Hurts contract helps that and kind of reshapes the market. Because when one person does something and you see everybody after that do something different, that means that person didn't set the market. They're just the outlier. If you see somebody like, again, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and now Jalen Hurts get different deals or deals less than Deshaun Watson, and you don't see anybody else get Deshaun Watson money, Deshaun Watson was the market for a minute. Now they're just considered the outlier. And when you have a Super Bowl qualifying quarterback, or a quarterback that led his team to the Super Bowl, now take less than Deshaun Watson, you can't then say, hey, I'm looking at Deshaun Watson, especially if you're Patrick Mahomes, then yes, you can look at Deshaun Watson's deal and say, I deserve more than that. And you would be absolutely correct. You have won, two Super Bowls? You've been to 3? Then yes, someone like a Patrick Mahomes can say, I'm looking at what Deshaun Watson makes, and I feel I deserve more than that. He's a multiple time MVP, multiple time Super Bowl champion. Deserved, you know what I'm saying? But now let me explain how this Jalen Hurts contract helps the Ravens tremendously, but hurts Lamar Jackson. When you're the Ravens, you can now go to the negotiating table and say, hey, I don't understand how you feel. You deserve more money than a quarterback that led their team to the Super Bowl. Now, again, if you're Lamar Jackson, you can always say, I'm still an MVP. I'm still, I'm still Lamar Jackson. I have a playoff win, but a playoff win is obviously different than a Super Bowl appearance, which Lamar Jackson has not done. And on top of that, another reason why this helps the Ravens is the deal that Jalen Hurts signed was eerily similar to the deal that the Ravens offered Lamar Jackson originally. Very similar. This just Lamar Jackson turned it down. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have to do one of two things at this point. I think that the whole getting anywhere close to Deshaun Watson money is out the window, especially when you see what Jalen Hurts got. Now, at this point, you can argue if Lamar Jackson is better than Jalen Hurts. In fact, I believe Lamar Jackson is better than Jalen Hurts. And that's no offense to Jalen Hurts. I just believe when I'm starting a team and when I'm building a team, I want Lamar Jackson before Jalen Hurts. But one thing that cannot be negated is one player has led their team to a Super Bowl, even though they didn't win. One player led their team to a Super Bowl. Another player has only one playoff win. Now, one thing that I don't like, and you hear this a lot, and you hear it more than when something's not going your way, let me say this, or when someone's not fitting a box, when someone is not fitting a box that they usually fit. Let me. How do I explain this? I hear a lot of people talk about how they're out on Lamar Jackson now. I hear a lot of people talk that Lamar Jackson is inconsistent. Lamar Jackson is unavailable. Lamar Jackson, they're out on him. He's getting noisy. Lamar Jackson he's not a quarterback you can build around anymore. Let's not conflate this situation here, and let's not conflate what's really real. Lamar Jackson is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Lamar Jackson has won 70% of his games that he's started. Lamar Jackson is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was just injured the last 2 years. Now, again, if you want to say that his injury, again, when you're at the negotiating table, whatever side is negotiating is always going to find things that help their case, right? This Jalen Hurts deal tremendously helps the Ravens' case, because then they can go back and again say, why would we pay you this? Or why do you think you deserve more than this if you have not done more than X player? Even though, yes, Jalen Hurts does not have his MVP, Lamar Jackson does. But that's pretty much where the difference is, or the comparison stop, because Jalen Hurts led his team to a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson is yet to do that. I think that one of two things is going to have to happen with Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson's either going to have to cave and sign a deal that he may not believe he's worth, but whatever the Ravens are offering or another team is going to offer. Because I just don't see, at least currently, I don't see how a team, either the Ravens or any other team, can offer Lamar Jackson more than Jalen Hurts, especially when you look at what Jalen Hurts just accomplished compared to what Lamar Jackson has yet to do. So I think Lamar's either going to have to accept the fact of I'm not going to make this much money. I'm not going to do that, or they're offering me this and they're not going to go up. So I'm going to have to accept this, or you're going to have to wait and see what the market holds for a Joe Burrow, for a Justin Herbert. Maybe have to sit out. I wouldn't advise that, but that might be what he has to do, because I just don't feel like if he's trying to get what Deshaun Watson's making, and that has been the reports this entire time, I just don't see that happening, especially with this Jalen Hurts contract. And don't get me wrong, Jalen Hurts deserves every single penny that he was paid. But when you have a quarterback that has done more than Jalen Hurts, that has done more than Deshaun Watson, that has done more than Kyler Murray, and in recent history has done more than Russell Wilson, and has done more than Lamar Jackson, Now you can't come if you're Lamar Jackson and say, I still deserve more than this player. So, again, shouts out to Jalen Hurts for getting the contract. And shouts out for the Eagles, man. Again, this, even though that's 255 million, 179 is godly numbers. It's still a team friendly deal if, because they still have holes that needs to be filled. But one hole that is not, or that is filled for the foreseeable future now, or at least for the next 5 years, is the quarterback position. So shouts out to Jalen Hurts. Shouts out to the Eagles. Let me go over to the NBA playoffs. The most interesting and the most exciting round that we have seen, and rightfully so, I kind of predicted this was going to be the Kings and the Golden State Warriors. As I'm recording this, is Tuesday afternoon. Of course, the DSPs release midnight on Wednesdays, and the visuals, the YouTube version, releases at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays. But I'm recording this Tuesday afternoon, meaning that there are still game twos that need to commence. But we at least for these first two games, the most interesting and the best series has been the Kings and Golden State Warriors, as we expected it to be. When you have players like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis, you have Mike Brown, Steve Kerr. This has been the best series so far. And as we currently talk or speak, the Kings are up against Golden State 2-0. Now, if you remember last episode, and you remember when I was giving my predictions, and I even put it in a reel or short, I said that whoever won game 2 was going to win the series. Because it's hard for me to see Golden State, if they would have gone down 2-0 or gone down, split 1-1, it would have been hard for me to see them win 4 of the next 5 games. And I think, and on the King side, it was like if they saw that Golden State, which has been struggled all year on the road, still won at home, I think that was going to do something for the psyche of the Kings, a Kings team that the team has not been to the playoffs since 2006. So I just thought whoever's going to win game 2 was going to win the series. Well, as we sit here today, the Kings are up 2-0. And I think that the series has been decided. Game 1 was decided by, 3 points. Game 2 was decided by 8 points. We'll get to the Draymond Green stomp in a second. But let me tell you what I've noticed in this series so far. I keep hitting the mic, Jesus. One fear that I had about the Kings was their defense. The Kings were statistically one of the worst defenses in basketball, and that doesn't bode well when you're going against a team with the firepower that the Golden State Warriors have. And while, yes, you can look at the regular season and understand that the Golden State Warriors was the middle of the pack offensive and defensive team, at least if you talk about field goal percentage and stuff like that, you still have at least 3 people that can go off at any moment, which is, of course, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Jordan Poole. What I've seen these first two games in this series, and one of the biggest reasons why the Kings are up 2-0 is because of the defense that they've played, and how, especially game 2, was a very physical game, and the Kings have stepped up to the plate. the way that they're guarding Steph Curry, and it feels like every single Golden State shot is a tough shot, whether it's a tough step back from Steph or Clay hitting bombs. They're all tough. Golden State very rarely gets easy buckets because of the defense of the Kings. Now, I don't know. I don't think the series is over because, again, Golden State is still one of the best teams in basketball at home. But there have been things that I've seen in these first two games, the defense being one of them, that kind of confirms the whole. This is why I was concerned about Golden State, and this is why when you say the whole flip the switch thing, you have to understand. With the whole flip the switch thing, you have to have players that know that that the switch is not flipped, and you have to have players to have the ability to flip the switch. While you have multiple players that can, you also have multiple players that can't, and that is the Golden State Warriors. See, the Golden State Warriors game plan, and you can kind of feel it. The Golden State Warriors game plan is simple. Contain Sabonis, try to contain De'Aaron Fox. Don't let anybody else score. The problem with that is the Kings are one of the best or the best offense in basketball. So the first game, you have Malik Monk go off for 30-something points. Next game, Kevin Huerter has 15 points. Harrison Barnes is dunking on people. Davion Mitchell is hitting big threes. Trey Lyles is hitting threes. It's like the game plan is the game plan. And on top of that, that's why these games have been so close. The Kings have been playing really good defense on Steph. I think Steph went 3 for 13 from 3 last game. But it's just everyone else needs to step up. And while Clay has his moments, Clay didn't necessarily play well game 2. And I'm not going to put it all on him. But these first 2 games, Jordan Poole, let me tell you, and again, I talked about this before. I talked about momentum and how momentum is a dangerous thing to have and a dangerous thing to lose. And one thing that I didn't say is momentum can be lost in a moment. A moment can change the momentum. In game 2, Golden State, I think, is down like 9-10 points. Jordan Poole comes in the game. They're on a run. They cut it to, I think, 4. Has the possibility to cut it to 1. Jordan Poole comes down, tosses the ball. Golden State's on a run, by the way. A nice run. Jordan Poole tosses the ball to the 8th row, trying to throw the ball to the corner to Andrew Wiggins. I think the very next play, the Kings score. Jordan Poole gets a wide open layup. Tries to finesse it, misses. The Kings go down, knock down a 3. Momentum killed with that pass. Jordan Poole has been terrible. And again, I'm not putting the Warriors being down 2-0 all on him, but he has been terrible. Shot selection has been bad. It's been bad. I don't know if it's the environment, because as we saw last year in the finals, Draymond Green kind of struggled when he was in Boston, because we know about the crowd and everything and how hostile it can be. I don't know if it's the crowd, because we know that role players and usually players in general play better at home. They're more comfortable. They know the fans are on their side. So maybe we may see the best of Jordan Poole on the road, at home. I think game 3 is Thursday. But again, you have to win on the road. To win a series, especially, you have to win on the road if you are not the home court advantage, which you're not. The Kings, I fully expect. Now, I know I predicted Golden State in 6. But again, I also said that the winner of Game 2 was going to win the series, and that was the Kings. I think the Kings are going to win this series now. I just haven't seen enough, at least the first 2 games. Now, again, I don't think the series is over. And come Saturday, it could be different. But there have been things that have concerned me about the Kings, seeing as though this could definitely be 1-1 if Andrew Wiggins hit the 3 in Game 1. That would have pretty much won them the game. But the Kings have, and one thing that the Kings are exposing of Golden State is you've seen this all year. And that's why players like Andrew Wiggins and Gary Payton II are so important to this team. The Golden State Warriors are drastically above average when we talk about athleticism. You really only have 3 athletic players, and that is Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, and Gary Payton II. And Jonathan Kuminga, I just don't think he's there yet, as far as he's good and he's getting better, but playoffs is a different animal. And as we see, every single time he gets in the game, he just fouls. So it's just one of the biggest reasons why it's so important that Andrew Wiggins and Gary Payton play more than maybe a Jordan Poole, than maybe a Dante DiVincenzo, is because their athleticism. Now, Dante DiVincenzo is athletic. He's just small. And the Kings are exploiting that. If Golden State, here's the thing. Here's the biggest thing that Golden State needs to do. Golden State needs to defend the pick and roll better. Especially a pick and roll that's involving De'Aaron Fox, because and Malik Monk, every single time it feels like Malik Monk or De'Aaron Fox comes off a pick and roll, they're getting a wide open mid-range shot or a wide open 3. It's just Golden State is struggling mightily getting off of or defending the pick and roll. And the very few times that they defend the pick and roll well, as far as the person coming off the pick and roll, then you'll have Sabonis or you'll have Alex Len have a wide open dunk. And they foul way too much. Again, these are all things that Golden State has struggled with throughout the entire season. You're just seeing it, of course, in the playoffs, because the whole flip the switch thing may have not worked. Hell, this is the first time in Steph Curry's era that he is down 2-0 or 0-2. So obviously this is untreaded waters. Now, of course, we've seen Golden State come back from 3-1, but I don't think that this is the same type of Golden State. Again, I'm not saying the series is over, because we know how different of a team Golden State is at home than they are away, and maybe they get their mojo back. Maybe they proverbial flip the switch. Maybe they do all that at home. But they're going to, if they want to win this series, they're going to have to win at least one game at home, or one game on the road, 2 games on the road. And as we've seen, they have struggled mightily in doing that, especially against a team that's over 500. And the Kings have been playing incredible. De'Aaron Fox is the best clutch player in basketball. When it's 4 minutes, or when it's the fourth quarter with like 5 minutes left in the game, it just feels like De'Aaron Fox turn his offensive sliders all the way up. And he just starts hitting everything. And, of course, that's when Andrew Wiggins, this is his second game back from a 2-month break with dealing with personal stuff. His legs are gone. Gary Payton, you can have Gary Payton on to play defense, but offensively, he's not like an offensive weapon like that. So you're pretty much playing 4-on-5 with Gary Payton on the floor offensively. Yes, he's good rebounding and he's good cutting, but he's not a reliable shooter. So if Golden State does not defend the pick and well, again, if the Golden State finds himself down 3-1 or 3-0, it's over with. If they lose at home, it's over with. That's the whole thing that people have been banking on, and I guess I am banking on at this point, is Golden State looking drastically different at home than they do on the road, which they've done all year. Well, if the Kings come and win at Orc or win at the Chase Center, I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State gets gentlemen swept. 5-game series. That's just that. The Kings it's been a pretty even matchup outside of, a few possessions, but those few possessions have, of course, gone to Sacramento. Now let me talk about the stomp. The Draymond Green Sabonis stomp. I'm not going to stay on this long because I don't need to stay on it long. Do I think Sabonis grabbed Draymond Green's ankle? Yes. I mean, there's obviously video footage of us seeing that. Do I think that Draymond Green could have stepped anywhere else instead of Domantas Sabonis' chest? Yes. I think that Draymond Green oversold it. And do I think he should have been kicked out the game? Yes. I mean, bro, you can't stomp on a dude's chest. I understand. Do I think that both plays were dirty? Yes. I think Sabonis grabbing Draymond Green's ankle was dirty because you can pop it out of place. You can pop it, you know what I'm saying? But do I think that Draymond Green, pretty much Stone Cold Steve Austin stomping on Sabonis' chest was dirty? Yes. Do I think that Draymond Green should get suspended? No. Because again, he was reacting to a dirty play. This Sabonis, this series has been a physical series. Now, I'm not absolving what Draymond Green did, and I'm not justifying what he did. But what I'm saying is, both of them were dirty plays, and one of them was just extremely more demonstrative than the other. But they both were dirty plays, and I think that it was right for the Draymond Green to be kicked out of the game. You just can't stay after that. I do understand he was reacting, but again, when it looks like that, come on, bro, you can't do that. That's all I'm saying. Again, 2 dirty plays. And I don't think Draymond Green should be suspended, but I do think that he was right to be kicked out of the game for literally stomping on Domantas Sabonis. But I am going to acknowledge that Sabonis did grab Draymond Green's ankle. So let's move forward, and let me talk about the Philadelphia 76ers for a second and James Harden. Philadelphia is currently up, 2-0 against the Brooklyn Nets. I predicted that they were going to either sweep or the Nets were going to win one game. I think it's more on the sweep side than it is on the Nets winning a game. The Nets are just drastically outmatched compared, to the Philadelphia 76ers when we talk about Joel Embiid. They don't really have another player, or they don't have a player that can guard Joel Embiid. Maxey's playing well. Tobias Harris is playing well. Then we get to James Harden. James Harden had an incredible first game. I think he had 20-something points. I know he hit 7 threes. He had, I think, 13 assists or something like that. James Harden had a great first game. Game 2, struggled a little bit. He did lead the game in assists, but he had 8 points. which of course led to the conversation. They don't pay James Harden to lead the league in scoring. I mean, in assists. They pay him to be an incredible scorer and assist. Like we know James Harden to be one of the best offensive weapons the league has ever seen. And that's why a lot of people think that if the Philadelphia 76ers are going to do anything in the playoffs moving forward, it's going to be on the backs of the offense of Joel Embiid and Draymond and James Harden. And let me say this. I think James Harden can afford to have a 8-point game against the Brooklyn Nets. As we saw, he just did it. And he can afford to have an 8-point game, 13, 14, 15 assist game against the Nets. Because the Nets' best scorer is Mikal Bridges, who we're all just finding out that he's a legit scorer like that. But they don't have the manpower to really keep up with the 76ers. So you can have a bad game against the Nets because they're a lesser opponent. But I think the whole legacy conversation is going to kick in with James Harden once you get to round 2, when you have to play. When you have to play a Boston Celtics, because kind of like the same. We'll talk about the Hawks and them in a second, but when you have to play a Boston Celtics, and now Joel Embiid alone can't win you a series. Now you're going to have to score, because now you're going to have to go up against a Jason Tatum. You're going to have to go up against a Jaylen Brown. You're going to have to go up against a Malcolm Brogdon. You're going to have to go up against a Grant Williams. Like, you're going to have to go up against better players. And you now can't afford to not be able to score or struggle to score. Even though it will be harder to score because the Boston Celtics is a better defensive team than the Brooklyn Nets. You see, I have absolutely no question or no concern that the Philadelphia 76ers is not going to make it out of round 1. I don't think unless Joel Embiid gets hurt, which knock on wood that doesn't happen, or James Harden or Tyrese Maxey, some catastrophic injuries, I don't see the 76ers losing this series. But one thing that I do see, if James Harden does not play better, if he is as inconsistent as he's been this series. Now again, I know there's only 2 games, but it's just 2 games this year. It's a pattern with James Harden throughout his entire career. Think about this. James Harden is second all time, I believe, in 3-pointers made, or third all time in 3-pointers made. One of those two. He's either second or third. James Harden is, I think, the all-time leading scorer in Houston Rockets history. James Harden is, I believe, in the top 20 or 15 in assists. James Harden is a top 75 player. NBA top 75 all time. He's in that list. He made that list. James Harden's only been to 1 NBA Finals, and that's when he was a 6th man on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Since then, James Harden has been to the Western Conference Finals, I think, once after that. And I believe that was with the Rockets when they went up against Golden State. What I'm saying is, a lot of the times that James Harden has not found success in the playoffs has been because of his inconsistent play. And while no, it's not going to cost you against the Brooklyn Nets, but as we're seeing early, one game you hit 7 threes, the next game you have 8 points. The inconsistency, at least for right now, we're still seeing it. And while it's not going to hurt you in round 1, it is drastically going to affect round 2 if this doesn't change. So Hey, bro. I'm not. Hey, you can afford to go 8. And Charles Barkley was right to an extent. You're not the Philadelphia 76ers aren't paying James Harden to lead the league in assist or lead the series in assists. They're paying him to score the ball or be the second best player on the team. And right now, if you really look at it, you can argue if he's the second best player, and that is a problem. Tyrese Maxey's good, don't get me wrong, but you can. There's an argument on who is the second best player, and that's not a good thing. Joel Embiid's been incredible this series, and again, I don't know how. I mean, it's Joel Embiid more than likely is going to win the MVP at this point. But the success of the Philadelphia 76ers, in my opinion, is on James Harden's shoulders. And if you can get through a Boston Celtics team in the next round, sky's the limit. But if not, 9 times out of 10 is going to be because of the inconsistent play of James Harden and the narrative that has been surrounding James Harden his entire career would only get brighter and louder. So let's move forward. Another one theme that we have seen throughout at least the first game or two of the playoffs is injuries. And one of the biggest injuries that we saw, of course, was Ja Morant. Ja Morant hurting his hand against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers ultimately won Game 1. But, and again, I'm recording this before Game 2, but it's looking like Ja Morant will not be playing in Game 2 and maybe more moving forward. A lot of people are saying that the Grizzlies are going to be okay because they actually play well without their star, without Ja Morant. They actually have one of the best records without their star. Because usually when a team is out their star, they kind of create like the Golden State's record with Curry on the bench compared to Curry on the floor is drastically like their plus minus is drastically different. The Los Angeles Lakers record with LeBron James and without LeBron James drastically different. The record with Ja Morant Ja Morant playing and Ja Morant not playing isn't that much different for the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are a good team all around. Here's the thing though. And I said this when I did the prediction. And you kind of seeing it, or you kind of saw it Game 1. Ja Morant has to be the best player on the floor for the Grizzlies to win the series. The Lakers have been arguably the best team in basketball since the trade deadline. And as we saw in Game 1, Rui Hachimura, he had a career high. Austin Reeves pretty much proclaiming that he's him and having an incredible game. LeBron James didn't even have that good of a game and they still won. The Lakers... this is not the same Lakers that we saw Game 1 of the NBA season. This is a different Lakers team. And even with Ja Morant, the Grizzlies this is a tough matchup for the Grizzlies. And as we saw, the Grizzlies struggle. They have no one to they struggle to guard the wings. Again, Austin Reeves is going off. Rui Hachimura is going off. Anthony Davis had a whole stinger, came back and went crazy. I said, if Triple J is not on the floor, which shouts out to Triple J for winning the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. Shouts out to him. But Triple J got, if he's not on the floor and Anthony Davis is, it's a feast. Dillon Brooks cannot guard LeBron James. Dillon Brooks you can't expect him to be. He's not a two-way player. He's not really good offensively. So it's gonna have to be John Morant. But with John Morant out, it's tough. This is while yes, the team's record with John Morant and without John Morant is still good. But in the playoffs, I think they're 1-something without John Morant. Let me see. They won a game last year. They won a game without John Morant against Golden State and then lost the next 3. And then they just lost. So they're like 1-3 or 1-2, 1-3. So I think this is monumental if John Morant can't. But now X-rays did come out and say that it wasn't fracture or anything. So maybe it's a nerve thing. I don't know. But I do know that they're saying that he's extremely doubtful. At this moment, he's extremely doubtful to play. The Grizzlies cannot win without John Morant. And it was already going to be tough to win with John Morant with this matchup. But because the Lakers are huge, pause. The Lakers are huge at multiple positions, every position. And that's just, especially with a team that is lacking size now that Brandon Clark and Steven Adams isn't playing. You need John Morant. And with them not having him, it's going to be tough. And I will say this, though. I'm not expecting Rui Hachimura to continue to, drop 29 points or Austin Reeves to continue to go crazy or whatever. But one thing that we are seeing is with the Lakers is it can be somebody else every night. It can be a D'Angelo Russell. It can be a Dennis Schroeder. It can be, of course, outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It can be multiple people. And that is tough for any team. And when you look at the Western Conference, this Lakers team, I'm not gonna predict them to go there, but this Lakers team is good enough to at least make it to a Western Conference Finals, let alone an NBA Finals, because of how they're playing currently. Now there are still some things like they still go through lulls in the game where there was a good. The Grizzlies had every opportunity to win this game. They just couldn't capitalize offensively. So defensively, there are still times where the Lakers look like the Lakers, but they're playing incredible. So, and without John Morant, it's a wrap for the Grizzlies, at least. Another injury that we saw, and of course, probably not as severe is Giannis Antetokounmpo getting hurt game 1 against the Heat. The Heat ultimately won game 1. There is a theory that I've had, and I think the Heat kind of confirmed it. What you see is since the play-in has started, usually the teams that had to play in the play-in usually win game 1 of their series. I mean, you saw that again last year with the Timberwolves won game 1 against the Grizzlies. Usually a team that plays in the play-in that has to win a game or 2 usually wins game 1 in the playoffs because they're coming in hot. They've had more games. They're more lathered up. Usually the team that they have to play has been sitting for a week or so. So their juices are flowing, and it's usually easier to get into a rhythm when you just played a couple days instead of played a week ago. So I'm not going to take a lot out of that Miami game because Miami was hot. They just had to play 2 games to see the Bucks. Also, Giannis went out with a back contusion. They are saying he's probably going to play game 2 again. I'm saying this before game 2. So, it's still up in the, actually game 2 is Wednesday. So bada bing, bada boom. But I will say this. Kind of like John Morant, the Bucks are going absolutely nowhere. If the Bucks are a good team, don't get me wrong. Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, who was a runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. But I will say this: if they do not have Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Bucks are winning nothing. I'm not going to say the Miami Heat will win this series if they don't have Giannis. Now, I do ultimately think they will have Giannis. It's not as severe, but Giannis isn't. I don't care who you are. I don't care how good your team is. Giannis is arguably the best player in basketball. You can't just lose the best player in basketball and think to yourself, "Oh, we're good." No, no. I will say that Tyler Euro's lost because Tyler Euro also broke his hand in the game. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks, so he's done. That's a huge loss for the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat team that already has Kyle Lowry that's in and out with hamstring injuries or hamstring injury, and a team that, like I said, struggles to score. They struggle to consistently score. When your best scorers is Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, now it's, Strauss, he's okay, but no. Tyler Euro's, that is a huge loss. But Giannis being out, which again, it looks like he's going to play game 2. Giannis being out is again, if Giannis cannot play, and now I know this is probably not going to happen, but if Giannis cannot play, the Bucks are losing the series. I don't care what happens. That's just that. The whole argument though has been around charges and should they take charges out the game. No. We never talk about charges until John Morant gets hurt and until Giannis gets hurt. But charges have been in the game forever. Like, we can't just change the rules because it affects somebody else. It affects 1 or 2 people. Come on now. I do think that you have to be more careful. And if you look at both plays, they could have easily been prevented. I mean, if John Morant would have kicked the ball to his left and Dylan Brooks was wide open for a 3, that's one thing. Giannis Antetokounmpo, same thing. I believe it was Chris Middleton was open. They just didn't pass it. Now they got hurt. Now Giannis again is less hurt, I guess you can say, than John Morant. But hey, I wouldn't take charge out the game. Let's move forward. I don't have to stay on this one for long. One thing that I love that I saw from Boston so far is Boston understands, we're not here to play. We're not trying to play with you. We don't want you to believe that you deserve to be on this floor. Going into this, I said that this was a terrible matchup for the Hawks. I think the Boston Celtics Miami Heat would have been a better matchup, but this was a terrible matchup for the Hawks because the Hawks cannot. The Boston Celtics trumped the Hawks in damn near every single position outside of possibly point guard with Trae Young. But game 1, you saw it. It's just like, hey, we're not playing with you here. We're not playing with you. There was a point where they were up by like 40 points. It's just complete dominance, and you want to when you're the team that just made it to the championship and lost. You want to you've been sending a message all year. You want to send a message in the playoffs say, hey, we're here for business. We don't care about you. We're running through everybody. Now, I don't know how that's going to fare in, again, round 2 and round 3. But when you're playing against a team that you're drastically better than, you do not play with that. And the Boston Celtics have not. And it sucks for Atlanta, but Atlanta's not that good of a team, at least this year. And the Boston Celtics are making light work of Atlanta. Light work. So, yeah. A very interesting turn of events that we've seen is the series, the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I thought this was going to be one of the more interesting series, which of course it has been. But what we're seeing is the true Cleveland Cavaliers and the true New York Knicks. All year and going to the playoffs, people have raved about how the Cavaliers are the best defense in the league, and how they're going against one of the best offenses in the league, at least towards the end of the season, which is the New York Knicks. And I was like, hold on now. Wait a minute. Yes, I understand that the Cleveland Cavaliers have statistically the best offense, but that's because of their front court. That's because of Evan Mobley, who I think finished third in MVP. That's because of Jonathan or Allen. That's because of Okoro. But when you talk about Darius Garland and you talk about Donovan Mitchell, incredible scores, they're not good defensively. And as we saw in this series so far, Jalen Brunson is taking it to Donovan Mitchell. They're both like the same height. Now, yeah, Donovan Mitchell is incredible and still scoring with the best of them. But the Knicks are exposing what the playoffs do is the playoffs usually expose your weaknesses. And good teams are able to capitalize on your weaknesses. The weaknesses for the Cleveland Cavaliers is one, they're a young team. So as we saw at least game one, there's like their young players struggled mightily scoring the ball, struggled doing anything. Their best player obviously was Donovan Mitchell, and he you can tell he was the only person that was really like, all right, yeah, like this is he knows what a playoff experience is. He knows what a playoff feel is, and you can see it throughout the game. He was the most consistent, and even when he wasn't hitting it, the team wasn't hitting. But what the Knicks have done is they've exploited the fact of, okay, well, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland both aren't the best defenders, and Okoro, bro, he is all defense, absolutely no offense. He can't shoot. It's going to be a struggle. This is, to me, the most evenly matched. Outside of maybe the first two games of Golden State were pretty evenly matched, but these have been this series is the most evenly matched series. Jalen Brunson going up against Donovan Mitchell has been a show. Julius Randle, we didn't know if he was going to be healthy, but he came up big. I'm still not going to get off my pick, but you know, the Knicks have shown exactly that they belong, I guess you can say. So, and they've exploited the weaknesses that the Cleveland Cavaliers do have. And if they don't get it rectified, then it's going to be a wrap soon. And I said this all year, man. I understand the history of the New York Knicks, and we kind of question because the playoffs, how they pretty much beat themselves in the playoffs year after year after year. But Jalen Brunson might be, shouts out to Joe Budden, Jalen Brunson actually might be one of the best free agent acquisitions that the New York Knicks have ever had. Or no, trades that the New York Knicks, or free agents, I'm sorry, that they've ever had in the offseason. Just the way that he stabilizes this team is, as we're seeing in the playoffs, is making dividends. Because I will say this, at least in game one, once the Cleveland Cavaliers made that run, usually that Knicks team would fold. They didn't, because Jalen Brunson was going shot after shot after shot. He was incredible. So that's been fun to watch. Let me talk about the Clippers and Suns series. There's a couple points that I want to hit on this. Game one, I think that you saw the inexperience, or let me not say inexperience. You saw the lack of playing time that the Phoenix Suns have had together. And you saw, again, it's all sweet when you're in the regular season and you're playing against the Hornets or whatever, and you can be 8-0. And they did play some good teams, don't get me wrong, but in the playoffs, that's when you really need to have chemistry. And as we saw, game one, the Suns had absolutely no chemistry on the floor. I mean, it felt like they were taking turns. Freaking Chris Paul had 7 points. It just DeAndre Ayton had more shots than Kevin Durant. That just can't happen. I'm not saying. I still think that the Suns are going to win the series because the lack of not having Paul George is huge. And for the there's a lot of people commenting on my page, which again I appreciate all the comments. I'm not saying one of the biggest reasons why I'm saying Paul George not being there is huge. I'm not saying because of his offense. I'm saying because the defense that he can present and his two-way ability that he can present on Devin Booker. You see, people keep saying playoff P, which I understand he has struggled in the playoffs, but people are negating the fact that he was the best player on the Clippers when they went to the Western Conference Finals just 2 years ago. So I'm not capable for Paul George. Don't get me wrong. I know Paul George has struggled mightily in the playoffs, but what I'm saying is I'm not saying he needs to be the Indiana Paul George as far as offensively, but the Clippers will need him to play defense against a Devin Booker. Devin Booker struggled game one. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. But as we're about to see, Devin Booker is still Devin Booker and one of the best offensive guards in the league. So, it was a huge win for the Clippers. Again, I'm shooting, and I'm going to keep saying this. I know I keep doing it, but I'm reminding you guys. I'm shooting this before game 2, which is tonight at 10 o'clock. So I don't know how game 2 goes, but I thoroughly believe that game 2 will be different. And I think that I still think the Suns are going to win. It's just, again, Kawhi Leonard went off for 38 points or something like that in game 1. And then it gets me to my second point, and that's Russell Westbrook. We saw, if you want to know how to describe Russell Westbrook, just turn on game 1 of this series. Everything that Russell Westbrook was game 1. Is Russell Westbrook a high energy player? Of course. That's how he gets his bread and butter, just being a high energy player. Is Russell Westbrook a good offensive shooter? Hell no. The man went 3 for 19, I believe. Is Russell Westbrook going to give you 100% every time? Yes, he is. As you saw from the last play of the game, he made an incredible defensive stop on Devin Booker and blocked the shot and threw it off of Devin Booker to secure the win. Is he erratic? Yes, he took some terrible shots. He had some terrible turnovers. But everything that is Russell Westbrook was game 1. There was an argument. There was an argument going around last week. I don't know who started it, but I know I saw it on Undisputed. So shouts out to you guys. That's where I got it. And that was who had a better career between Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul. And to answer that question, I think you have to ask yourself, what do you value in a career? Has Russell Westbrook accomplished more individually than Chris Paul? Yes. I mean, he has an MVP. He's a triple-double king. He's one of the greatest players we've ever seen, as far as we've never seen anybody like Russell Westbrook. If you like the loud, individual, flashy, play, then yeah, you would say Russell Westbrook is better than Chris Paul. But what makes Chris Paul? What has Chris Paul done? Chris Paul, of course, is multiple-time All-Star, multiple-time assists leader. I think he's one of the best point guards of all time. Not the best, of course, but one of the best point guards of all time. He's only been to one NBA Finals, and of course, he's lost. Same as Russell Westbrook, been to one NBA Finals, lost. So if you want I will say this. If you're talking about individual, who's been an individual basketball player, I wouldn't be upset if you said Russell Westbrook. Again, he has more of the individual accolades. But if you're trying to build a team and I need one of them in their prime, I'm taking Chris Paul 10 times out of 10. I just feel he can galvanize, and with his ability to assist, his IQ. You would not be wrong if you pick Chris Paul over Russell Westbrook. You wouldn't be wrong if you pick Russell Westbrook over Chris Paul. What I'm saying is it depends on what you value. If you value the triple doubles, if you value the MVP, then of course you're going to go Russell Westbrook, because if you really look at their accolades, they've kind of done the same amount of stuff. However, if you team building, and if every single team Chris Paul went to has gotten better, at least the first few years he was there, I understand who you go with. But I think that if you're talking about the totality of the Clippers, I actually want to, I also want to shout out Ty Lue. One of the biggest reasons, I like to think that being an NBA coach is one of the hardest sports jobs in general, or one of the hardest jobs as a coach in general. I understand that the NFL, you have more players. I understand that hockey, you have probably less wiggle room to do things. Baseball, I don't know. But one of the biggest reasons why I think it's harder to be an NBA coach than any other coach in sports is because you have to deal let's look at some of the things you have to deal with. You have to deal with egos. The NBA builds their brand on the players, not necessarily the teams. Like the NFL. The NFL builds their brand on the teams. It's the shield. NBA, they brand their product on the players. That's why they elevate LeBron James. That's why they elevate Steph Curry. That's why they elevate and promote someone like John Morant or KD. So you have to deal with egos. You have to deal with players that automatically, a lot of players, I'm not saying them, but all players that think that they know more than you, which isn't the case at all. That shouldn't be the case. Then you also have to deal with some players that are kids, that are just coming straight out of high school, or 1 year in college, or 1 year in the G League, 1 year over. Like, you have to deal with so much. And I say all that to say, Ty Lue, year after year after year, continues to show why he's one of the best coaches in the NBA. When you have to deal with the personalities that he has to deal with, think about this. In his coaching tenure, he's had to deal with the personality of LeBron James. And not only deal with the personality, but you have to earn their respect with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and now Russell Westbrook. And he has done that seamlessly. Ty Lue is showing that I think that Mike Brown is going to win Coach of the Year. I think he deserves to win Coach of the Year. But I think right now Ty Lue is probably the best coach in basketball. And I'm not taking away for anything that Greg Popovich has done. I'm not taking away from anything that Eric Spoelstra has done. I'm not taking away from anything that, Steve Kerr or Mike Budenholzer or any of these coaches have done. I just believe that Ty Lue has proven to be one of, if not the best coach in basketball currently. Again, I think that Mike Brown deserves to win Coach of the Year. I think that what he's done with the Kings warrants him to be the Coach of the Year. But Ty Lue continues to show, and don't get me wrong, I understand. When I think of Ty Lue, I still think of the step over. I'm an Allen Iverson fan. It is what it is. But Ty Lue has proven to be one of, if not the best coach in basketball. Shouts out to him, man. Now, again, I even if they lose this series, I just think that with the injuries and everything, it's a tough series to win. It is a tough series to win. But, I mean, again, shouts out for winning game one. So, turn up. And I'm not going to stay on this long. It goes back to the same conversation that I had with the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. When you're better than a team, or when you feel a team does not deserve to be on the same floor as you, you don't play games with it. You don't. you make a statement and you keep it moving. And that's exactly what the Denver Nuggets did. The Denver, it feels like the Denver Nuggets, and at least going into the playoffs, the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves are going in two different directions. A team that's getting healthy in the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray's playing better. Aaron Gordon's playing better. Michael Porter Jr. is playing good. You have Jokic, who's an MVP finalist. You know they're going up. But then you have a team in the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have Rudy Gobert fighting Kyle Anderson. You have McDaniels punching a wall, fracturing his hand. Karl Anthony Towns. You know what I realized about Karl Anthony Towns? Year and year has been proven. And if Karl Anthony Towns is your best player, you're not a championship caliber team. I like Cat. Has a 50-point game in the league. In fact, I think he had a 50-point game this year, maybe. Or maybe last year. But if Karl Anthony Towns is your best player, you're not a championship winning team. We've seen that year after year after year. And as we're seeing in these playoffs, there is a drastic difference between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Think about how many names the Timberwolves have. Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Mike Conley. None of that matters. And the Denver Nuggets showed game one, they are the superior team. And I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves can get a game because of their size. I think their size and if the Denver Nuggets aren't shooting well, their size can be a problem for a game. Because, hell, even Jokic scored 13 points. But he didn't need to score that much. Murray went crazy. Michael Porter Jr. went crazy. Kentavious Caldwell Pope went crazy. Denver did exactly what the Boston Celtics did. You look at a team that's across from you and say, you don't deserve to be on this floor. We're going to handle business. And they did. And I think you're going to see that throughout the entire series. It's going to be a quick one. Like I said before, I think there's going to be a gentleman sweep, if not a sweep. So there you have it, man. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I appreciate you guys. For the people asking me why I haven't talked about the draft like that, or why I haven't done a mock draft, because I don't want to do a mock draft. I don't care about it. I will say this. I'm not saying I don't care about the draft. I'm saying I don't care about a mock draft. What I'll do is, the draft is next week, right? I will talk about the draft all next week. That's not the only thing I'm going to talk about, of course, but I will talk about the draft all next week. But I don't want to do mock draft 0.1, 0.2, 0.5, 0.6. Like, what's the point of that? I will talk about the draft. I promise you. And I appreciate all your support. I really do. I really do. But that has been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I do truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Popular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve, joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to if you're listening. Please subscribe to if you're watching. It definitely means a lot to me. And until next time, much love.